Okay, so have you ever worked with a database that fits in your pocket?
In your pocket.
Well, not literally, but
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
it's like imagine you're building an app, right? And you need a database, but you don't want to deal with setting up a whole server. That's where PHP SQlite comes in. It's a database that lives entirely within a single file.
Yeah, no server setup required. You just plug it in and go. It's really streamlined, especially for smaller projects or if you need to get something up and running really quickly.
Exactly, and the portability, that's huge. This tutorial we're looking at, it's from plus2net.com, and they call SQlite a full-featured file-based database. So we're talking tables, queries, the whole works. But it's all self-contained in this one file.
It's really quite remarkable. You could build your database using something like Python, and since it's just a file, drop it straight into your PHP project. No converting, no headaches.
Like a universal data stick. They even get into some security stuff, which makes you wonder, is it easier to lock down a single file or a whole server?
Well, that's the thing. It's different, not necessarily easier or harder. With SQlite, you're focusing on file-level security, permissions, maybe some encryption. With the server, you've got users, access controls, network security, different ballpark.
So the right tool for the right job, as always. And speaking of tools, this tutorial talks about two ways to connect to an SQlite database from PHP PDO and SQlite 3. Are you familiar with those?
Oh, absolutely. PDO, that's your multi-tool, works with a bunch of different database types, SQlite being one. SQlite 3 is more like your specialized tool. Just for SQlite might be a bit faster if you're really after performance.
Gotcha. So if I'm switching between different database systems, PDO is the way to go.
Most likely, yeah. It's built for that kind of versatility.
Makes sense. Now, they keep mentioning CRU'd operations. Is that just a fancy database term?
It sounds more complicated than it is. It's really just how we talk to databases.
Yeah.
Create, read, update, delete. The four basic things you can do with data.
So if I'm building an online store, CRD is how I add new products, display them to customers, update the inventory, and remove things that aren't selling.
Exactly. You got it. CRD is the backbone of how we work with data.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. And the cool thing is the tutorial gives us some sample PHP scripts using CROD. Always helps to see it in action.
Absolutely. Examples are key. And, one thing I noticed, the tutorial mentions these scripts work with MySQL as well, which just goes to show how versatile PDO can be. Write the code once, use it with different databases.
PDO, the polyglot of databases. Okay, before we move on, we've covered a lot. File-based databases, connecting with PHP, even a bit about security. What stands out to you so far?
Honestly, it's just how different this whole approach is. We're so used to thinking about databases as these big, complex things. SQlite just says, hey, what if we put it all in a file? Really changes the game.
Totally. It really is amazing when you think about it, shrinking a server room down to the size of a thumb drive. But okay, let's get into some of the technical details. I noticed a few things in the tutorial that seemed a bit different from other databases. Like, it mentioned that SQlite handles dates and times as text-t, and it stores Boolean values, true or false, as ones and zeros. Is there a reason it doesn't just use specific date or Boolean data types?
You're definitely picking up on some of the unique things about SQlite. It all comes down to this idea of dynamic typing. Basically, instead of saying, this column can only hold numbers when you create a table, SQlite says, let's just see what you throw in there.
So it just figures it out as it goes.
Pretty much. You can put a number in a column and then later put some text in that same column. It's really flexible, which is great, especially in the early stages of a project when things are changing all the time. And actually, storing dates as text-t, it might seem strange, but it gives you more control over how you format and work with those dates in your application.
So a trade-off for more flexibility.
Yeah.
Interesting. What about the Booleans as ones and zeros? That one really threw me for a loop.
That's SQlite, getting down to the bare bones of how computers think. At the most basic level, everything in a computer is just ones and zeros, on or off, true or false. So even something like a Boolean value is really just represented by those binary digits under the hood. SQlite just cuts to the chase.
The matrix, right. It all makes sense now. Okay, so we've talked about how great SQlite is for smaller projects, but this tutorial also mentioned in-memory databases, which sound even more lightweight. What are those all about?
Have you ever needed to work with data really quickly, but you didn't need to store it permanently? That's where in-memory databases shine. Instead of living on your hard drive, they live entirely in your computer's RAM.
In RAM, so the data just disappears when you turn off your computer.
Exactly. It's incredibly fast because RAM is much faster to access than a hard drive. Perfect for things like really complex calculations, analyzing data in real time, or caching information that you need to access frequently. But yeah, once you turn off your computer, it's gone.
Wow, it's like a super fast temporary data storage space. What kind of applications would benefit from that kind of speed? So it's like having the best of both worlds.
Right.
These super fast in-memory databases for temporary things, and then the file-based databases for when you need to hold on to information longer.
You got it. It's about picking the right tool for what you're doing. In-memory databases are like race cars, crazy fast, but not for long distances. And then your file-based databases, they're more like those reliable workhorses. Always get the job done.
This has been awesome. PHP SQlite, I feel like I'm ready to go build something with it.
I love to hear it. And remember, that plus2net.com tutorial we've been talking about, they have those sample scripts you can download. Mess around with them. It's the best way to learn.
Definitely will. So as we wrap up this PHP SQlite deep dive, what's the key takeaway here?
Don't limit yourself to thinking about databases in just one way. Skylight shows us just how powerful a simple approach can be. I mean, think about it, a database that can fit in your Tocket. Who knows what you could build with that?
So true. From small projects to who knows what, PHP SQlite has something for everyone. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of file-based databases. Until next time, happy coding!